Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday, August 7th, 2019 Board of County Commissioners meeting. It's a very exciting day. It's Budget Adoption Day. It's one of my favorite days of the year. This morning I'd like to make a few announcements, starting with the Family and Consumer Sciences team at K-State Research and Extension. We have 3 members here with us this morning, but a team of 4 was recognized recently at the Wichita Business Journal Healthcare Heroes banquet for their community outreach work. So we'd like to say congratulations to the 4 agents here: Teresa Hatfield, Sarah Sawyer, Elizabeth Bronchine Cartagena, and Stephanie Lopez. I really hope I didn't butcher your name. I think I got it. The Family and Consumer Sciences programs helps people in Sedgwick County navigate the challenges of staying strong, healthy, and disease-free throughout their life. Thousands of people are reached each year through workshops offered at the Extension Center, exhibiting a variety of events and providing services such as the Medicare counseling. So we have 3 talented people here with us this morning, and we'd like to recognize you and congratulate you for your service.
An opportunity to say a couple words before you continue on. This is the award from the Wichita Business Journal. They had a banquet recently where these folks were recognized. And let me just say a couple things about the recognition that evening. First of all, our Family and Consumer Science team for Sedgwick County Extension Office was recognized for community outreach. Their team consists of 4 agents, 5 educators, and many volunteers who address health through multiple county programs. And I want to thank each one of their members for their support. But I want to go a little bit further. Not only were these folks recognized, but there were a number of other folks who were recognized that have ties to Sedgwick County. First of all, David Wright, who is on my Citizens Advisory Board with HFG Architecture, was recognized for international outreach. He's a member of my Citizens Advisory Board, as I said. His international efforts resulted in a 175-bed hospital in Kenya. He's traveled the world to explore improvements in healthcare treatments and facilities, and I thank him for his work both on my board and his work in healthcare. Also recognized for a Lifetime Achievement Award was Carolyn Gahn. She is the wife of another Citizens Advisory Board, Pat. She has been a public health advocate in our community. She's an unfailing patient advocate, improving the lives of millions of people in our state. Also, a retired Sedgwick County paramedic, Lee Chambers, was recognized nationally for being part of a team who saved the life of a toddler who nearly drowned in an icy pond. He was also honored as the Kansas Emergency Medical Service Associate Paramedic of the Year. We are the Board of Health for Sedgwick County, and so recognizing the people that take care of our citizens each and every day are vital to what we do as the Board of Health. And I want to thank the members of the Sedgwick County Extension Office that are here today. Thank you very much for your efforts and your work that you do for us. And I want to thank everyone else that's involved in the health services community. And again, being awarded a member of the Healthcare Heroes is something that I really do believe is something that we need to honor, and I appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
All right, and continuing the trend with some honors and awards, our Central Plains Area Agency on Aging recently received 2 awards during a National Association conference. The CPAAA received an Innovation Award for their Mobile Farmers Market program and an Aging Achievement Award for innovative partnerships to enhance congregant meal service. So we'll have a little bit more details later this year to talk about those 2 programs and the awards and recognize our CPAAA and also the Executive Director, Annette Graham. All right, moving on, as our families and friends and neighbors all get ready for back to school vaccines are a hot topic this year. So Adrienne Byrne, our Health Director, is going to come up and talk about these vaccines that we offer.
Good morning, Commissioners and Board of Health. Adrienne Byrne, Health Director. So back to school is an important time, and it is National Immunization Awareness Month, so this is a great opportunity to remind everyone the importance of being up to date on their vaccinations. Kansas Department of Health and Environment did modify the required vaccinations to get into the school this 2019-2020 year to include hepatitis A and meningococcal vaccinations. Those are not new vaccinations. They have been on the recommended list for a long, long time, just like Flu is on the recommended list, and we do always provide that as well. So these aren't new. And we always provide recommended, what is on the recommended Center for Disease Control list at the health department unless someone asks not to receive certain vaccinations. So it is important for everyone to be up to date. USD 259 does allow some grace period, even though it is best that children be up to date before they start school, since they'll be around a lot of other children. But USD 259 does give a grace period, and they have until October 17th. If they're not up to date on all their vaccinations by October 17th, then they will be excluded and can't go to school until they either provide their exclusions or come to school with their card showing that they've been given all of their vaccinations. So it's not just important for children, but adults also. We can be protected from illnesses such as flu, measles, and pneumonia, to name 3. So it's important for all of us to be up to date. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Adrian. And Commissioner Cruz.
I have a question for you. So is there a way for people to find what immunizations if they don't have their paperwork? Is that all collected through the health department? And how does somebody, what are your hours of operations if somebody wanted to come in and get their child vaccinated?
That is a great question. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, so every day but Thursday, we have walk-ins from 8 until 11:30, and then noon to 5, we have appointments. And then on Thursdays, we have appointments from noon until 6:30. And our number is 660-7300 if anyone has questions. Not everyone enters information into the Kansas Immunization Registry, but if they come to the health department, we have all of those. And if they don't have the records and they've been to us, they can contact us and we will provide those.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Here in a little bit, we're going to have a proclamation, so you'll be back up to see us shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and one final announcement. Tomorrow evening from 6 to 8 p.m., we will have an informational groundwater flooding meeting at Hayesville Middle School, 900 West Grand. It will be in the gymnasium. More details can be found on our Facebook page event, and I believe that can also have the agenda as well on the event. On the agenda, Commissioners, we have meeting minutes, a proclamation for Immunization Month. There's a donation for the Department on Aging. Commissioners will select a voting delegate and alternates for an upcoming conference. You'll consider the report of the Board of Bids and Contracts, and then move on to the adoption of the 2020 Sedgwick County Budget and Capital Improvement Plan. Today's fire meeting includes 3 different meeting minutes and the adoption of the 2020 Sedgwick County Fire District 1 budget. And Chairman, you can have the meeting now.
Well, thank you, Kate. I appreciate it. First of all, I want to welcome everyone that is in the audience today, both here and online. I also want to welcome Dr. Shelley Stedman, who is in our audience. She is the Mayor of Mulvane. I always try and recognize elected officials that are here in the room with us. This time, I'd like to call the meeting to order for Wednesday, August 7th, 2019. Madam Clerk, next item.
Invocation to be led by Pastor Marcia Haney, Bethany United Methodist Church. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Heavenly Father, we come today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial, neutral, as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. God, we thank you for all elected officials and their committees that work with them. May you continue to watch over our city and bless us with peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. We appreciate it very much. Next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Present.
Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Dennis.
Present. Next item, please.
Public agenda.
Thank you. I don't have anyone signed up to speak on public agenda at this time. We have had a couple of public meetings on the agenda, on the budget. So if you would like to speak on that or any other item at this time, now would be your opportunity. Seeing no one, next item, please.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, regular meeting minutes of July 10th, 2019.
Thank you. Commissioners, everyone's had an opportunity to review the minutes from July 10th and July 17th. Move to approve both.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call a roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Proclamations. Item C, proclamation declaring National Immunization Month.
Thank you. Commissioners, I have a proclamation that I'd like to read. Whereas National Immunization Awareness Month is an annual observance held in August to highlight the importance of vaccination for people of all ages. And whereas communities across the country use the month each year to raise awareness about the important role vaccines play in preventing serious and sometimes deadly diseases across the lifespan. And whereas vaccines are safe, effective, and the best protection against these diseases from infancy to early childhood into old age. By getting vaccinated, we not only protect ourselves, we help stop the spread of the disease to our children, families, and communities. And whereas for vaccines to be most effective, vaccination rates must remain high, we must persist in raising awareness about immunizations and encouraging timely vaccination. There are benefits of vaccines for people of all ages, including infants, children, teens, pregnant women, and adults. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Chairman David T. Dennis, and the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners do hereby proclaim the month of August 2019 as National Immunization Month in Sedgwick County and urge all residents to educate themselves on vaccine-preventable diseases and spread the word about the importance of immunizations. Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to hear the proclamation. Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. And Adrian Byrne is here to receive the proclamation. Thank you for being back.
Good morning, Commissioners, Board of Health, Adrian Byrne, Health Director. And I really appreciate being able to be up here twice to talk about the importance of being vaccinated and to spread the word, because you stated everything in the proclamation as far as why it's so important. There are some children that are too young to be vaccinated, and so the more people that are vaccinated, the more we are able to protect those children from deadly diseases. And these vaccinations keep thousands of people from dying every year, so they're very important. And again, thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you for being here with the proclamation. I do believe in vaccinations. Matter of fact, just about a week ago, I got the shingles in one arm and the pneumonia shot in the other arm, and both of them hurt for about 3 days. But it's valuable because I didn't want either one of those things. So thank you very much for being here. Next item, please.
Appointments. Item D, accept the resignation of Sanford Alexander from the Wichita-Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board.
Mr. Papoon.
Commissioners, Mike Papoon, Interim County Counselor. You have before you the resignation of Sanford Alexander. Having attended a number of these board meetings, I can tell you that Mr. Alexander was a valuable member of this board and a great advocate for the visually impaired. I ask you to take the recommended action and accept his resignation.
Thank you. Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you, Chairman, and I agree. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Alexander needs to resign for personal reasons, and regrettably needs to resign. So I want to thank him for his service. I didn't know him very well, but I understand he was a valuable asset for that board. So with that, I'll make the motion to accept his resignation.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
New business. Item E, acceptance of a donation totaling $315 for the Department on Aging Retired Seniors Volunteer Program.
Annette, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Annette Graham, Department on Aging. This memorial is in honor of Robert Bob Dement, who became a Sedgwick County RSVP volunteer in August of 2005. For the first 3 years of his service, he worked in the RSVP service workroom located at our office. In 2008, RSVP began partnering with the Mid-Continent Airport, which, as you know, is now the Dwight D. Eisenhower Airport. And soon after, Bob began volunteering with them to provide information to Wichita travelers. There are presently 13 RSVP volunteers providing service at the Eisenhower Airport. If you see someone behind the information desk in a red vest, there's a good chance they are a RSVP volunteer. Bob was an active member of the RSVP Advisory Council and enjoyed helping others find a defined purpose beyond retirement. It was at his request that his wife set up a memorial in Bob's name with donations going to the Sedgwick County RSVP program. Sedgwick County, as you know, it has a RSVP volunteer program for those who are 55 and older. In 2018, RSVP had 283 active volunteers that served over 71,000 hours at 45 nonprofit agencies in Sedgwick County to help provide much-needed services in the community. These opportunities at these agencies allow volunteers to draw on their skills and to give them a chance to develop new ones. And most importantly, the volunteers are given a sense of purpose and accomplishment as they help others. Those who are 55 and older who are interested in volunteer opportunities can call us at 1-855-200-2372.
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say it's great to receive this memorial donation. And RSVP, in case I'm not sure it was actually said, but RSVP stands for Retired Seniors Volunteer Program, because I always think it means, responding back to some kind of invitation. But in this case, it's Retired Seniors Volunteer Program. And I would like to make a motion we would accept the donation and authorize the chairman to sign the letter of appreciation.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, and it's our honor to receive this in Bob's name. We appreciate it very much. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Item F, selection of voting delegate and alternates for the Kansas Association of Counties 44th Annual Conference.
Thank you. I was able to catch several of the commissioners to talk about this. Commissioner Lacey Cruz has volunteered to be our primary voting member. I volunteered to be an alternate, and Commissioner Meitzner volunteered to be an alternate. So I make a motion that we approve those three as primary and the two alternates.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? To Mr. Papone.
Chairman, you might clarify first alternate and second alternate in the form.
Okay.
I believe you're going to be the first alternate.
I'll be a first alternate. Commissioner Meitzner will be the second alternate. Are we good legally?
Yeah.
All right. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Report of the Board of Bids and Contracts regular meeting on August 1st, 2019.
Morning, Joe.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Joe Thomas, Purchasing Director. The meeting we had with the Board of Bids and Contracts on August 1st, we have two items that we seek your approval on. Item number one is the electronic monitoring service for the Department of Corrections. This recommendation is to accept the proposal from Buddy US LLC at the rates listed and to establish contract pricing for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew. And our final item is the CAD consultant for emergency communications. And this recommendation is to accept the proposal from Mission Critical Partners LLC, and that's in the amount of $138,869. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions and recommend approval of both items.
Thank you. Any questions? Each one of the commissioners have had an opportunity to review these two bids. Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Dennis.
Aye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Joe. Next item, please.
Item H, adoption of the 2020 Sedgwick County budget and the capital improvement program.
Morning, Mr. Manager.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Today is Budget Adoption Day. In February, of this year, we started in earnest a discussion with you all at a retreat at Wichita State University to begin to identify priorities and things that you deem to be important for the 2020 budget. We followed this retreat up with a series of meetings, both internal staff meetings based on what we heard you say at the retreat, and then through meetings with you all in this room publicly to hear from department heads and division heads about the needs and their challenges within their individual work areas. Based on that work, we crafted a recommended budget, which was given to you on June 19th. And then following that recommended budget, we had two public meetings, one on July 24th and one on August 5th. And all through that process, we had an online opportunity for any citizen to come in and contact or to make comments on the budget. Based on all those efforts, our recommended budget is before you today again. The recommended budgets, I don't think are ever perfect. We do the best we can to, as we go through this 8-month-long process, to try to be fair and equitable to all services that the county provides, to give departments what they need to provide the services that citizens in our community demand. Understanding that they're never perfect, we know there are some issues today we want to discuss, but before we get to that, I'd like to commend, and I can't tell you how important this budget staff is behind me, Lindsay Poe-Rousseau, our CFO, and Lorian Ari Showalter. Did I say that right? Showalter Ari? Backwards, right? Do tremendous work for during, not only through this process, but during crisis time in the last few days where we are making last-minute tweaks and adjustments and preparing for the discussion today. So I just want to commend them for the work that they do. With that said, I'll read you the numbers again that we talked about in the public meeting. Sedgwick County's recommended operating budget for 2020 totals $437,312,854. This budget will be supported with a property tax levy of $149,196,923, which is approximately equivalent to 29.359 mills based on the estimated assessed valuation and subject to technical adjustments. With that said, Chairman, I turn it over to you now for discussion about this budget, and we have a number of staff here and myself available for questions and comments as we go through the process.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I want to echo your comments that I appreciate the staff's work on this. We're going to get into a few discussions here in a moment, but the time that's been spent on this since February is immense. This is just the paperwork that I have right now. There was one other book. I didn't feel like carrying it in, but this is how much time and effort that the staff has prepared for this, and we appreciate it. Commissioner Cruz.
Are you going to open it for public discussion?
We already did.
Okay. So I just want to, thank you, Chairman. I just want to kind of second what you were mentioning as far as the process itself. I just really want to thank our finance staff, Lorian, Carly, Lee, Andrew, and Lindsay, of course. I have had more explanation than I could possibly imagine, and I feel like I have a really good understanding, obviously with more to learn. But this is my first one, so I'm going to give it a shot. I really want to thank all of my fellow commissioners as well. Each one of you guys have taught me something individually about this process and kind of how to navigate the waters and really understanding how things work. So, 99% of this budget I'm absolutely in agree with. While I want to fund every single thing that has been brought forth, the big stack over there, we just simply can't, unfortunately. Yesterday I sat in a JAG meeting, thank you to Bean for, and I saw how people are fighting for funds, and, there's just not enough money to go around, and unfortunately that's one thing that we have to deal with as commissioners. That being said, I was really moved by our public comments. We had a couple of folks come in and just kind of really advocate for what was not listed in our manager's recommended budget. And so, you know, as a senior advocate for over the past 13 years, there's a very special place in my heart for folks who are aging in this community and have the wisdom that I seek to learn from. So while I'm not exactly happy with some of the requests and how they came in, I think that we all have to follow a process. And there were some requests that came in after the fact that as I have to follow a process, I want everybody else to follow a process. But regardless of how they came in, it doesn't negate the necessity of their ask. So I want to make sure that we understand, while we can't fund everything, I do have a request, and I'd like to make a motion, and I move we transfer a total of $125,000 from the compensation contingency to the aging department budget for use on the following: $84,720 to fund the May 2019 Aging Advisory Board requests, specifically the requests for aging and physical disability Meals on Wheels and wheelchair posture seating, and the remaining $40,280 be used toward the highest priority needs as identified by Department on Aging staff and the Aging Advisory Board.
Thank you, Commissioner Cruz. I appreciate the motion. I do agree with you on this, and I would like to second your motion. We've had a lot of discussion on aging recently, and if I look in the mirror, I recognize that I probably fit that category. And most of my friends are somewhere in the same age group as I'm in, so I do care about protecting the aging population, and it's a growing population, and we have to keep looking at that in the future. I have a little bit of concerns with the way that the process came to us, and I hope that next year that the process is much better on how that it arrives at the point that we make a decision like this. Last year we did have a motion that passed that directed our staff to come back with some recommendations on how we work through this a little bit easier so that we don't go through the process that we went through this year. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And so I want to go back and remind the staff that you still do have a valid motion that was passed a year ago, that I do expect something to come back to this board in the near future so that we don't go through the process that we went through for the past 2 years. I don't want the seniors to ever think that we don't care about them, but I do care that we have a process that works. So the other concern that I have, and I want to make sure everybody understands, that we have to make very, very difficult decisions each and every day as we go through this budget process. We've been working on it since February, but let me just give a sample of things that were requested that are not in this budget. The appraiser's office asked for 6 additional folks to help them in their office. We approved 1, is in this budget. The county treasurer asked for a tax clerk. We didn't approve that at all. Emergency communications asked for an electronics technician that wasn't approved, and they asked for some part-time positions, and I think we only approved 1 in this budget. Our Forensic Science Center asked for a lab technician, and it was not approved in this budget. The county sheriff asked for a background deputy investigator, not approved. And also our county sheriff asked for a recruiting deputy. It's not in this budget. Public Works needs a storm drainage trailer, and we know that storm drainage is important. It's not in this budget. Our department in health has asked for a drug epidemiologist and an STI community education and prevention position. Neither one of those positions is in this budget. Parks Department asked for a building maintenance director. That's not in this budget. The Sedgwick County Zoo asked for a zookeeper. That's not in this budget. I can't say that some of these positions aren't absolutely critical to our county. I think that an epidemiologist is something that is very critical. An STI coordinator is something that's very critical. We care about all of our citizens, but we have to make hard decisions. Some people are going to criticize those hard decisions that we're making, and I understand that because everyone has a passion. We each have a passion here at this board to make sure that we support everything that we believe is truly important in our community. But when we have a limited budget and we have a tax cap that we cannot exceed, it was passed by a previous commission, and we have not exceeded that tax cap. We make hard decisions every single day. And if your funding is not in this budget, it's not because we didn't agonize over it, we didn't lose sleep over it, we didn't think over it very hard. But these are important decisions we're making. $450 million is what we want to talk about overall today between this and the fire budget. It sounds like a lot of money, but when we start spreading it out across all of the different programs, somebody is not going to get the program that they truly believe is important. And I appreciate, again, the passion that each and every one of you have, and you've talked to us about it, and we've heard you. And so I hope that everyone understands why that we're moving forward, and that's why I second this motion. Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious if you have a copy of that motion, that we could review that, or can you? I didn't think I heard. I only heard it the first time. I'd like to know a little more details exactly what that was again. Okay. So the $40,280. The Department of Aging staff and Aging Advisory Board will determine how to spend it. How do we arrive at $4280? I'm just curious where that number came from.
So the money is for the $25,000 that was requested for senior centers, and then the additional $17,000 that is in the budget currently.
Okay. The $25,000 that was requested by senior centers. Can you please remind me, is this last year's effort to get $5,000 to each of the five? Is that what we're talking about there? No, it's not.
Jim, it is. It is. That's
I'm
the
just trying to clarify.
conversation we had.
I don't know if it's clear to Department of Aging and the Aging Advisory Board what that money was designated for, if that's what we're saying. It's not clear to me. That's why I'm asking.
Commissioners, Lindsay Peruso, your CFO. So the motion as written allocates the $40,280 to be used for highest priorities. If it turns out that $25,000 to give each senior center $5,000 is what that group deems as critical, then that is what would happen. And that's how I understood the intent of Commissioner Cruz's motion. And if that's not right, Commissioner, please feel free to correct me.
So to be clear, they can choose to do whatever they want with the $40,280 as they see what they believe is the best priorities for that money. That's how they'll divide it up. They may or may not agree with the 25 for 5.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Or should say the 5 for 5. Okay. And then the other 17 she mentioned, is that the money that was already allocated out of the 4 approved requests that she just mentioned?
No, this would be new money. That $17,000 that was in the original. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's the $17,000 that was requested for Park City, those 4 senior centers that requested those. Hayesville. Yes, Mulvane.
Okay, so you want to reallocate that?
Right.
Okay.
So 17,628 is the number, and that was for the 4 requests that were approved out of the 5 that were received. Is that what we're talking about?
So the way this is written is the full $125,000 would come from the compensation contingency. And so I think we would need an additional motion to divert the additional money for senior centers that had been in the aging budget either to the compensation contingency so that the whole $125,000 could be moved, or we can reduce the amount of this transfer from the compensation contingency, or we can just amend the motion to say that's how you want to do it.
As the motion sits right now, though, the Aging Advisory Board and the Department of Aging would have total discretion on whether that $17,000 went to those 4 needs or not. That would still be up in the air, so to speak. The motion as is currently written. Mm-hmm. They would have the discretion to make decisions.
Yes.
To how to spend the $4280, that would be totally up to them at that point. So
right. Those groups together would have that authority.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Cruz.
So if I could, thank you, Chairman. If I could, so I would add a substitute motion to my motion, or I would
just amend.
I would amend my motion to include, so it would be the 17,000 minus, it would be 40,000 minus the 17.
We can simply just amend the motion so that we
Okay.
reallocate the additional funding that was for aging senior centers
Okay.
to this pot.
So I will amend it to move, we reallocate the $17,628 in additional budget authority that was added to the Department on Aging for senior centers to aging community-based services at staff's discretion.
And I'll continue to second that.
I have one question.
Commissioner Howe.
So just to clarify, if this motion was not made, the 17,628 is already included in the base budget as it came to us today.
Correct.
This is just changing where that money comes from. That's what the motion does for that 17,628. It moves where it's coming from in the budget.
It would, instead of allocating it directly to senior centers, it would move it out of the senior center pot and make it accessible for community-based services or in-home services that go through that typical process where the Aging Advisory Board and aging staff together recommend allocations. And
Okay.
it could wind up going to senior centers, but it could also be allocated to
Just to
different
clarify, with her
priorities.
amended motion just now, she's saying that she wants those four requests to be funded with the 17,628. That's what that would be designated for. The rest of the money would be
No,
decided
the
by-
whole, excuse me, sorry to
sorry, go ahead.
interrupt. No, the whole money, the $40,000, the $40,280 would be used. It would be one pot.
Okay.
That now our aging staff and our aging advisory board, if they deemed it appropriate at the beginning, I have to believe that they would deem this money appropriate in the future. That's kind of what, I mean, that's what logic seems to tell me. Do you not feel that way?
Well, I appreciate the spirit of the motion. I just wanted, this is our opportunity to add clarity. And
Okay.
I would like it if it was clear to them that it's our intention that the 17,628 was designated to meet the needs of those four requests that were approved. That's in the base budget. All we're really motioning for is for the money for that, the funding for those four items is changing. That's all that motion would do for the 17,628. The remainder of that, $40,280, would be discretionary to the Department of Aging and the Aging Advisory Board. Would that be, so with that explanation, I think that'd be more acceptable.
Well, if that's the explanation, I may have to remove my second, because I have a problem. I just talked about the things that we are not doing, things like an epidemiologist and things for the Forensic Science Center. That $17,000 is going to get yoga chairs. It's going to get evening dance classes and computer education. It's going to get community education training. It's going to get a computer lab. Are those more important than the things that I said we're not funding?
So
That's
gentlemen,
why I would have a problem.
yeah, and I completely understand. I hear you. And I think what I'm trying to do here is to trust in our staff and in the people that we have placed on these boards to say, hey, this money that we are going to give to you, we're going to allocate towards your services. We trust that you're going to put it in the right place.
I agree with you, and I do trust them to put it in the right place. What I don't want is a commissioner saying that we're going to go back to what we had before, which I don't know is the priority.
So I just want to, I don't want to lose focus on what we're trying to accomplish. And so I get it, we might have conflicts of interest and how we feel like things need to be done, but at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is get some money for our senior citizen population. So if we could come to a consensus as to what our priorities are, I mean, I hear you guys, I really do, I hear you. And this is what I want to avoid is a fight about this, because I think we all understand that we want the money to be utilized in the best way possible. So I have to, I'm very impressed with Annette and her team for doing their comprehensive plan. We have an opportunity coming up to do a study of how other folks in our community allocate their funds, given the same population, the same size of place. So I think that if we could get past this and make an understanding with each other that we want to utilize the funds in the most appropriate way. I think that's really what we're trying to do. And if we get hung up on these little sort of intricacies, I think we lose our focus.
I agree with Commissioner Cruz. I think right now we're putting in more than anybody ever asked us to put in, and it's not time for us to micromanage this. It's time for us to move forward and support our senior citizens. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Oh, Commissioner Howell is.
You haven't spoken yet.
Okay, perfect. So I'm supportive of this motion, getting more money into senior centers. It would benefit my district greatly, particularly senior services, because I know you want to fund those Meals on Wheels programs, getting people off of the waiting list and getting and paying for the meals as well. I like the idea of going more to just block grant style funding instead of saying we're going to fund, and I support the chair yoga because that is in the Hayesville Senior Center, but it might be more beneficial that we don't give them money with strings attached to it. And I think that's what Commissioner Cruz is saying, that we will have staff allocate this money and maybe look at a way in working with Annette and Tim Kaufman to say more of a block grant potentially instead of tying it to individual programs, because that list that Commissioner Dennis read earlier, that does tug at your heart, particularly when you're talking about public health and trying to avoid outbreaks of STIs, STDs, the epidemiologists. There are a lot of important things. So instead of getting hung up on individual programs, I like the idea. We'll take the strings off of those programs for those 4 senior centers and just go to more just maybe block grant funding where the senior centers can apply for that. Because I think there are other senior centers that are looking for money, and I've talked to Dr. Lee, I believe that's in your district, Commissioner Cruz, it's called me about it and said you were a good advocate. They don't feel like they had their message heard, so I like that you're adding more money and we can get it maybe into programs that there was an oversight. So as long as we do keep it competitive and open, I'm supportive of that.
Very good. Commissioner Howell.
So first of all, I'd like to just say I'm not trying to be argumentative. I want these motions to be crisp and clear so there's no question later on. Because there have been sometimes we made some motions and then wonder later on exactly what we meant by the motion. So I think it's important to be clear. And that's all I'm trying to do here. I appreciate the spirit of the motion and I support generally what you're trying to do here. I would like to remind us all that the 17,628 is already in the budget. And so we're not, if we didn't pass this at all, the 17,628, unless you make a motion to remove it from the budget, it's already in the budget and allocated for those 4 things. So I understand what you guys are saying about the block grant, but it's already been defined in the budget and it's designated for those 4 things at 17,628. That's already there. So if we make this a motion as it sits, it becomes, to me, funding the same things that the budget already stipulates, and it adds $22,652 that is discretionary, and it does fund the $84,720 for the posture seating and the Meals on Wheels and those things. To me, that's a great motion. But the 17,628, if you want to reduce this 4,280 down to 22,652 and leave the 17 in the budget where it sits currently, I think that's, in my opinion, a crisper, cleaner motion. Go ahead.
Commissioner Cruz.
But you're reducing the total amount of funds that we are allotting.
No, Commissioner Cruz, the 17,628 is already in the budget.
Right.
So your motion is including moving the source of that funding from where it sits now in the budget to a different location in the budget. So the funding is sourced from someplace else. But the dollars to those 4 things is still in the budget either way.
Right.
So I'm not reducing it. I'm not suggesting we reduce the dollars. I'm suggesting that if you leave the 17,628 in the budget where it sits, it's already funded. Your motion, if it included the 84,720 that you already talked about, and you left the $22,652 discretionary for the Department of Aging, that would accomplish, I think, what you're trying to do, and it would leave the 4 items. The 17,628 would be untouched. If that makes any sense.
My problem, she has amended it to move that 17,000 because, as I said several times already, my problem is funding yoga chairs, evening dance classes, and so forth is not a priority compared to some of the things that we're not funding. So I suggest that we do move that money from where that it's at right now in the budget over to this block grant type funding, because there are other things besides that. We have nutrition programs, a roving pantry, commodity distribution, Sedgwick County in-home programs, medical critical need transportation, aging medical services, health screenings, adult daycare, counseling services, RSVP, senior employment, aging legal services, senior companion, Alzheimer's Association. These things are certainly more important than yoga chairs. So that's why I think that the motion is appropriate. Commissioner Howe?
Thank you. I would like to make a couple of comments. Number one, our staff sent out a letter requesting the 17 senior centers to determine what things they would like to add funding to. It had to be new programs. It wasn't existing programs. It had to be new programs. Of the 17, as they wrote that letter, they had 10 days to respond, and 5 of them did respond. And a lot of these senior centers have boards of directors, and I've talked to numbers of them. A lot of them had difficulties complying with the timeline, but 5 of them did come back with requests, and of those 5, the Aging Advisory Board approved 4 of the 5. And you say things like yoga chairs or dancing classes. What that really is exercise. And exercise helps our seniors stay independent and healthy and thriving in the community as long as possible, which is really what the senior centers are trying to do. They do that through nutrition, education, socialization, exercise, and a number of other strategies that they employ. You say things like yoga chair or pickleball or other things you want to talk about. It may sound funny to say it that way, but in reality what we're talking about is exercise for seniors, encourage them to be active. And that's what these programs are trying to do. To the issue of block grants, I agree with the spirit of block grants. I agree with the spirit of block grants. In fact, I suggested a year ago that we would simply do mill levy funding, and we would empower the Aging Advisory Board to determine the best priorities for the spending of those dollars. And by using mill levy funding, it would essentially create a small increase based on inflation each year, and they could best determine how to spend that money to get the greatest use for those dollars. And I would like to empower them to do that. But that's not the process. And someone mentioned process a minute ago. The process that was defined by our staff was we sent out a letter and requested funding request, and 5 senior centers responded. And it went through the process, and it's in the budget, whether we like it or not, it's there. And I think for us to go back to a block grant for those 4 items would require a motion, and maybe that's what this motion is, to take the strings off those 4 things and allow the Aging Advisory Board and the Department of Aging to redetermine the best use of that 17,628. I think that violates the process. And so, and what makes this different than everything else that was mentioned by the chairman earlier, in my opinion, all the other things we talked about, there's a lot of money for 5 appraisers. Some of these things are fee funded, some of these things are grant funded. But the total dollars for all of those different staff positions is a fairly big number. If we fully funded the senior centers according to the formula that I believe that some people think was eliminated last year, I don't think it was eliminated. I think it was frozen for 1 year. But that's because again the motion I don't think was crisp and clear. But if we fully funded the formula this year, it's about $100,000 for the 5 senior centers that are qualified. That's 20 cents per person tax across this county. And bear in mind, there was a mill levy question in 1982 that passed 2-1 to spend up to 1 mil. 20 cents is, I think the last calculator was like 0.04 mils change. Maybe it's not even that much now. But it was a very small amount of money. So, again, I appreciate the motion. I don't think we're doing what we should do here, and I would support the motion because it does increase dollars, but I think that we should honor the 4 things that came to us through the budget and through the process that we gave those folks, and I think that would be the one thing I would prefer. But
yeah, I think what you forget is that the advisory council is an advisory council, and they send something up to be recommended in the budget, but it is our responsibility at that point in time to decide whether it makes sense to put in there. So it does not violate the process. We are now making a decision on whether or not that should be in there. You mentioned the mill levy, and 1983 or 84, whenever this was passed, at that point in time, the commission at that time put in 0.7 mils, which is quite a bit back in 1984. But that equated to $923,627. If we said that that was today's dollars, adjusted for inflation, that would be $2,232,232,233. And in actuality, what we're putting in is greater than that. We're putting in $378,322 plus now an additional $125,000. So we're above what the commissioners at that point in time. If you say that that was the will of the commissioners at that point in time, in 1984 they didn't do it, 1985, 1986, and I can count all the way up to 2019, it never reached that. So it has never been what the commission, if you think that that was a precedence, there is a precedence that's been set. So I think we're arguing over a very small portion of the budget. I don't know why we're spending this much time on it. We have said that Commissioner Cruz said she wants to put another $125,000 in aging. I agree that that's something that's important to do. I also agree with her that we ought to take a look at this $17,000 and make sure that it's going to the right place. So I don't know what we're arguing about at this point in time. I don't see any other comments. Madam Clerk, call roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Thank you. And we still have to pass the budget, though. Are there any other modifications to the budget before I get on to that? Commissioner Howell?
Thank you. And again, I appreciate the good discussion. I don't want to come across as being argumentative. I want to just make sure it's crisp and clear. And I think that we're moving in the right direction, so I supported that motion, so thank you for your work on that. I had some other options. I'm not maybe going to go there now. I'm going to skip those. So I would let me move to an issue of the pug mill issue. A couple years, I think it was last year, there was a discussion about, I guess, in the budget, eliminating the R342 program, and that's the program where commissioners would pick a mile every other year. One time it used to be a mile every year to pave, and I'm not suggesting we go back to re-implement an R342 program. I'm not suggesting that today. But the issue is the pug, and I'm using the word P-U-G, pug mill, not anything else, but the pug mill was used to create cold mix that has created at least 150 miles of cold mix roads in Sedgwick County. I asked Mr. Spears, our Director of Public Works. He said we've been doing this since he's been here, so at least 37 years, and beyond that, the county has been laying down cold mix roads, and there's at least 150 miles of those in the county. I've looked at a map. Most of those are not in my district, just to be clear. But we have in the budget R350. Pardon me?
Go ahead. Oh, nothing.
We have in the budget what we call R350, which is designed to maintain cold mix roads. But with the discussion of, with Mr. Spears, I'm learning that's probably around 5 miles of road that will be touched with that $1.5 million. And if you just do the simple math, it would take 30 years at that rate to get to all of our roads. And these roads are designed to last probably a maximum of about 7 years without some type of maintenance happening to those roads. So this is not obviously a plan. And by the way, if you were to use that same ratio in today's dollars, it would cost $45 million to fix all of those roads one time. And it would take, at the rate we're doing it, 30 years to do it. So clearly this is not a plan that makes any sense. In my opinion, we need to revisit that quickly. And this is our chance to do that. So I have a motion that, let me find it real quick. Let's see here. All right. Apologize. Here we go. I will pass these out so you can have a copy. What this does is it takes the R350 program and it eliminates it for the next 2 years. Currently in the budget, that's $3 million. And it would take the remainder dollars, $925,000 out of CIP reserve. Now, we could use bonds for this piece of equipment. However, it would have to be public building commission bonds, which is much more complicated. It's got to go to a public vote. It's a very expensive piece of equipment. So I'd rather use, I don't mind using some bonds and some cash to pay for this. I think it makes sense. And I don't like taking money out of CIP reserve, which would be probably dedicated towards a future administration building. But whatever the cost of that admin building is, we're going to bond the bulk of that regardless. And if we have to add $900,000 to the bonds on the admin building to get the pug mill, to me that's a choice we ought to make, because the pug mill issue is critical to get that solved sooner than later. So this motion would take R350 this year and next year, I'd say 2020 and 2021, that's $3 million. And the remainder, half of that would come out of CIP reserve this year and half come out of CIP reserve next year, so that in 2022, we could purchase and place a pug mill in our Public Works Department. Then they'll have to play catch up, because we're not going to be able to maintain roads these next 2 years. So we'll have extra roads to fix. But at least with the pug mill, the cost to maintain these roads drops significantly, and it helps us keep up with the infrastructure we already own. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you all, but I would go ahead and, as you have the motion in front of you, let me go ahead and read it. I move that we reallocate a total of $3,925,000 to a new CIP project to construct a cold mix asphalt plant with asphalt recycle system and an 8-ton asphalt paver in the 2021 capital improvement plan. The funding shall be allocated from two sources. First, $1.5 million in each of the 2020 and 2021 from CIP project R350, which is entitled County Roads Gravel or Coal Mix Replacement. And secondly, the remaining funding of $925,000 shall be reallocated from the County Administration Building, CIP, to be transferred to the plant project in equal installments of 2020 and 2021. I don't know if, Lindsay, if I said that accurately enough. So that's my motion today, and I'd like to discuss this and hopefully vote on it.
We have a motion. We have a couple, before we go into comments, Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My quick observation is we've gone from a $125,000 discussion to a $3.9 million adjustment. And this is, I think, I'm not going to second the motion, and because I believe this is an item that could be taken up in a staff meeting or a workshop, and so we could have I could have a clear understanding of what we want to do. Commissioner Howe, you explained it to the degree that you explained it, but it's very confusing to me, and I am not in favor of a adjustment in the budget at this time today, but I am in favor of looking at what would be a real solution if the pug mill world is something we want to move into. I'd just like to have a better grasp about it, and could easily be fully supportive at a later date if after further understanding. So that's my comment.
Before I go on to Commissioner Cruz, I do agree with Commissioner Meitzner, because you're hitting us with a $4 million hit. I've actually asked David Spears a month or two ago to take a look at this very issue. So it is something that I think we need to research. I think that it needs to go to the CIP committee before it comes to us, because I don't know what the cost trade-offs are. We spend $4 million for this, but I don't know what it would cost us to contract this out to some of the different folks that do maintenance. And the cost study is going to have to be inclusive, because it's going to have to take into account not only the cost of this pug mill, but depreciation on the pug mill, what it costs for our workers that are involved in this, what it costs us to fill up the trucks and drive them out there, what it costs us for lost opportunities, because now we're doing this instead of something else, and we could have contracted it out. So I need to know what the best option is, and I think that the appropriate thing is for the CIP committee to take a look at this and bring it back. And I know that David Spears is already studying this, because I've already asked him to take a look at this very thing. So it's not that I'm objecting to it whatsoever. It's just that I think this is the inappropriate time to be doing it. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you, Chairman. Jim, thanks for bringing this to us. One thing I guess I would have liked would have been sort of an explanation beforehand. That's kind of why I came to you and talked to you about my motion, so I didn't just spring it on you. I think that is probably the more appropriate way to handle things with me, just simply because this is a lot to take in right now in a matter of 4 or 5 minutes. So I would like to see more information, and that's why I don't know enough about this to even make an intelligent decision as to whether I haven't even talked to David Spears. I mean, really no one has given me anything about this. So I guess that's what I would ask in the future. If you have something that's $4 million, maybe just come to me beforehand and let's chat before you spring it on me in front of everybody.
And I don't want to kill this. I'd like you to modify your motion and recommend it go to the CIP committee to come back to us at a future date, because we can always reallocate money during the budget cycle. Oh, Commissioner Howe, you had some comments.
Well, just a couple things. Number one, I'm trying to do my very best to avoid interactive discussion about items that come before this board unless we're in an open meeting. I brought this up in a staff meeting recently, and we had a robust discussion. I have talked about this with David Spears numerous times. He has done study on this. And I think if we were to ask David Spears, you know, how urgent is it we come up with a solution to cold mix roads, I think if you understand the things I just mentioned a minute ago, this is an urgent matter, and there's no better time to talk about this than during budget adoption. With all due respect, the CIP committee, it's a fine process. We could push this back, but I think it's imperative that we begin to solve this in the 2020 fiscal year. And I would like it if our budget that we adopt reflected the wishes of what we really plan to do, knowing that this is a critical issue. And I don't know if maybe David Spears would have anything he wants to say about this, but I'd like to invite him to speak if he would want to say anything.
David Spears, Director of Public Works. I'll say that at Public Works, we are 100% convinced that this is the answer to fixing our coal mix roads. I don't know if right now, Commissioner Howell, and I appreciate you bringing this up, to spring this on everybody a little bit is the right time. Well, I think we can still accomplish this by doing a CIP amendment later. I want to tell you that we have finished our evaluation of the pug mill, of the payback period, and that we have a meeting set up, already had this before you brought this up, with Lindsay and Tom for August the 20th to discuss it with them to make sure they agree with what our engineers have come up with, and then we were either going to have a workshop or something, give it to you 5 so that you could look at it with our recommendation. I'm kind of like, I wish it was a little faster, that we could have done it now, but I'm just not sure we're right at coordinating at the same time frame. But we are convinced that this is the way to go to repair our 150 miles of coal mix roads. I want the public to understand that we have 400 miles of hot mix roads that are in great shape. I'd put them up against any other governmental agency. But this is and these coal mix roads are not high volume roads, and most of them used to be township roads that we now are responsible for. And the way it's in the CIP now, as you mentioned, it's not sustainable. At $1.5 million a year of fixing 5 miles a year, you can't keep up. It's going to fall down around your ears. So we're convinced this is it, but we want to follow the right process. See Lindsay, see Tom, come back to you guys. Then go to the CIP committee, have a CIP amendment, and then bring it up. And I'm hoping we can still get on the time frame that you would like, Commissioner Howell, to hopefully start getting this next year. Be glad to answer any questions.
I have other comments, but I see Commissioner O'Donnell has his light on, so I'll wait.
Okay. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate everything David Spears just said, but yeah, it comes down to me, what's the cost benefit? I know I've talked to Mr. Spears about this. I think I've even talked to you about this in the past, Commissioner, that if you can show me that financially this is the thing that makes the most sense, I'll be open to it. That's how I try to make most of my decisions. The only thing that continues to concern me is how much politics can get played when we have our own pug mill. I mean, that whole program of a commissioner getting a road a year, a mile a year, and then a mile every other year. I was happy we got rid of that because that was political. It was in election years. And we were going to our township and saying, hey, what road do you want? And then last year, a commissioner bullied people into getting a couple of miles. It was so political, it was gross. I'm happy we got rid of that program. We still work with our townships. There's not a county in the state that has better relationships with their townships than us in Sedgwick County, whether that's cleaning out ditches, helping with roads. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So I'm not ashamed to tell my township trustees this is the best thing for everybody because it takes the politics out of it. What concerns me about owning a pug mill is that it's too easy to say, hey, I have this mile or I have this half a mile. We know you have millings. How do we get that? And then it puts us in a position, like I told Commissioner Dennis one time we were talking, I said, I'm glad I don't own a Corvette like you because nobody can come and ask me to drive my Corvette because I don't have one. So it's easy for me to deflect it and tell people no. So that is my concern because politics gets played with these roads and it happened historically.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell.
I appreciate the dialogue today. With the issue of the 2 extra miles, that was not hot mix. In fact, none of the commissioners, myself included, have ever actually done a cold mix road yet because the pug mill broke before I became a commissioner. And so I have gone through one term. I was able to pick a couple of miles that were critical and very important to have solved. One of those roads, David Spears said was by far the worst road in Sedgwick County, and it was a fairly high traffic count. It was right on the edge of Derby, and it was so expensive. That mile and the next mile over together was about $1.8 million, which Westar had to move about 50 or 60 poles. One of those poles was an aluminum pole about 80 feet tall. It was extremely expensive, and it's near a transfer station. And the road was so bad, the drainage was so bad that it was beyond the ability of any of the jurisdictions to solve that. But we had a 4-way partnership, and we solved the problem. I paved a half mile next to Southeast High School. And to me, that is about helping the kids be safe as they exit the school, as they traveled south on a dirt road to a paved road. I wanted them to be on a paved road. I thought that was a smart thing to do. And I talked to staff about that, and they thought that was a pretty good idea as well. If you asked our staff to do an analysis and see are they warranted to be paved, the answer is probably no. But these are smart things, and they were very, very difficult roads for anybody else to solve it. But Sedgwick County did a great job. Unfortunately, we did not use cold mix because the pug mill was broken. We have great roads there now because we used a better process. I'm going to get back to the point here that at this current rate, at $1.5 million a year, it'll take $45 million in 30 years. These roads last 7 years max. If we don't begin to solve this problem, you're going to start converting these roads back to dirt. That's your only option. You have got to find a way to solve this with a technology that can keep these roads going, and the cold mix solves that problem, and it is affordable. Sedgwick County has maintained these cold mix roads for decades. They're not all new roads. And the way that they did that is by having a pug mill and fixing these roads up every few years. And every 5 years or so, they go out there and solve that with county staff. And our county does a good job with that. So, in fact, I think when I talked about this before, I don't know who it was that said it, but they said it's a no-brainer. You have to do this. There is no other option. So I don't know. We can talk about this, kick it down the road, kick the can down the road, and hopefully we'll solve this. But 2020 is our year to begin to solve this. We have to solve this. So I think the motion's a pretty good motion. If you all don't want to do this today, that's fine. I hope we do it soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to make an alternate motion that we send this to the CIP committee to come back with a recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Okay, we still have to pass the budget, or does anyone else have any other motions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I'll move my microphone a little bit closer. So I'd like to make a motion, and with Lindsay up here, I'll ask a couple of leading questions to start the motion. So in this budget, one of the things that we're touting is compensation. I think most of us can be very proud that we're including a 2.25% raise for all county employees. As many people know, there's been tremendous flooding in my district. A lot of people's basements were destroyed, a whole lot of problems, particularly in the Hancock Acres development, around the Peach Valley Estates development and other places. I made a personal commitment to these individuals at 2 different meetings that I had, public meetings, that I would do everything within my own power to help. We're looking at getting a study started with PEC to maybe come up with a dewatering plan. We're having a public meeting tomorrow night, thanks to county staff for putting that together, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at the end of the meeting to remind the public to be there. But I made a commitment to the citizens in that area that I was going to do everything I personally can. So with that, I want to take the raise that I personally will be receiving, and I want to put that towards a long-term flooding solution for one of these areas, whether that's Hancock Acres or Peach Valley or overall plan for these residents in my district. And Lindsay helped me come up with a motion, so I appreciate that. So I will read this. So I move that we transfer $2,158, the amount of the 2.25% raise that I'm entitled to, from the personnel area of the county commission budget to the storm drainage department within Public Works, to designate that funding be used towards the development of some flooding solution for my district. That is my motion.
Thank you. Second motion. Any discussion on that? Commissioner Howell.
Just want to clarify, is this just this is for 1 year, and after this next year, that it goes back to whatever the commissioner's salary is that correct?
We would do whatever the will of Commissioner O'Donnell is.
This motion's for 1 year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
2020.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner? Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Does anyone else have any other motions to make before we move on to approving a budget? Commissioner Howell.
Just some information I thought would be interesting, and I appreciate Sheena, our HR director, is here somewhere. There she is.
In the green.
I'm not going to ask her to say anything, but I just want to do when I was in the legislature, by the way, we saw pretty big motions on the floor, and most people never saw them until they were made on the floor, and we had to make decisions based on the merits of what we understood the motions to be. So that's the environment, at least that I came from, and Commissioner O'Donnell, I'm sure, understands that as well. But this is a thing where I started to, when I was in the state legislature, one of the things we did was we asked the question, how many positions are funded but are budgeted and funded but not filled? And how long have they been unfilled? And so we actually found out there was quite a lot of positions that were budgeted in the state budget that were not being filled, and really wasn't much of an intent to fill those positions. In fact, I think it was about 4,000 positions. And so we made a motion one day during the budget process, and we eliminated those 4,000 positions. I'm not suggesting we do that here at all, but I did ask a question: are there funded but unfilled positions in the county? I'd like you all to know. My numbers may be a little off, and I understand that some of these positions are part-time, some of them are fee-funded, some of them are grant-funded, some of them are seasonal. There's reasons why they're open, but as of the other day when I asked the question, there was 858 positions in Sedgwick County that were open positions that were not filled. So I went and did a pivot table and found out there's 177 different job titles that we are currently have positions in the budget somewhere that have money tied to them potentially, but they are not filled for whatever reason. And I went over to Success Factors, which is our new employment portal. Used to be called HRE Partners, and Success Factors shows a total of 60 positions being advertised right now. So maybe there's some positions that are in the process of being filled, maybe some positions in the process of being posted, but there's a huge difference from 177 to 60. And so I think the question remains, how is it that we have such a large difference between the number of jobs we show open on the staffing table versus what we actually have here? So I would just like to say, I know it's the staff's intention. I had planned to make a motion today to clean that up some. The problem is we don't have time to get there. So this much like the CIP motion a minute ago, I would like to make it really clear that we need to have our staff go through and review our staffing tables and probably eliminate a lot of positions that we don't seem to have an intent to fill at this time, for whatever reason. Again, some of these positions are seasonal, grant-funded, fee-funded. There may be reasons why they're not being filled currently, but some of the stuff is tax dollars. Some of the stuff it makes an effect on the bottom dollar of the budget, and that's the part I think we ought to be focused on as commissioners. So I just wanted to make that clear. Second of all, because the CIP amendment did not pass for the PUG mill, I'm probably going to want to separate this motion for the budget and the CIP. And I don't know if my colleagues would allow me to do that, but I would be willing to make a motion that we would do this. I'd like to do this in 2 separate steps, if that's okay. I would like to support the budget, but not the CIP. And so with that, there is...
Very good. Are you not supporting the CIP strictly because of the PUG mill, or?
There's that, plus the issue, and I would be willing to concede on my $4 million for the bonding argument I make every year. I would concede this year if the PUG mill was in there. But because it's not in there, I have 2 reasons now to oppose the CIP this year. So I would like to have that a separate vote and have the opportunity to vote for the budget. So
We always defer to commissioners when they want to do something like separate this out. So we can separate in 2 separate votes. The second part of why that you're voting against it is where I have a problem, is that you want these projects in your district, but you don't want to ever vote for them. So this is one of several years in a row now that you're going to vote against CIP. Okay.
Again, Mr. Commissioner, or Commissioner Dennis, I would be willing to vote for CIP this year because the PUG mill is so important that if that had been part of this, I would have voted for it. Okay. I would concede on the other argument, but that's not where we're at today.
Thank you. When I get to one point, I'm going to ask Lindsay to give me a number. I move that we adopt the resolution for the 2020 Sedgwick County budget that includes an operating budget of, give me the number.
$437,312,854. Are you trying to do the 2 separate motions?
I'm doing 2 separate, but don't we have to change because we added another 120? We added more.
No,
money?
We're just shifting money within the budget, so it did not increase the overall total.
Right numbers,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I don't need you to give me any.
Okay,
You're on top
good.
of it. Very good. Okay. Then I move that we adopt the resolution for the 2020 Sedgwick County budget that includes an operating budget of $437,312,854 and the 2020 cash funding capital improvement program of $14,682,238. Total operating budget is partially funded with a property tax levy of $149,196,923, which is approximately equivalent to 29.359 mills based on the estimated assessed valuation subject to review and technical adjustments. That's the correct motion, correct? Very good. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. I have another motion. I move that we adopt the resolution authorizing the addition of the bond-funded and externally funded portions of the 2020 capital improvement program totaling $8,116,000 to the 2020 capital improvement program included in the 2020 Sedgwick County budget. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you. Trying to think how to word this, but it is important. I really appreciate what Public Works does, what David Spears and his staff does. and I do wish we lived in a world where we could pay cash for everything. Unfortunately, we don't live in that world. These projects, I believe, our Public Works Director makes sure that these are all long-term roads. These aren't, or bridges, 50-year bridges, 70-year bridges, long-term projects, so that that generational equity that we often talk about, it makes a lot of sense to bond something out that people using these bridges over the next 50 years will be paying them off over the next couple of decades. So to me, it makes a lot of financial sense since we don't have $1 billion in reserves. So even though personally I don't like taking on debt, I understand the need to do this, and so that's why I think it's fiscally responsible to have generations of people that are using these roads pay for them.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I found that, I think, Chairman, you mentioned this website before. There's a website out there that captures some fiscal points of each of the 105 counties in Kansas. Sedgwick County is great in a number of areas, but we are the third highest in terms of our bonded indebtedness in the state of Kansas, out of 105 counties. There are 17 counties in the state of Kansas that seem to not have any debt, according to this report. I find out that there are many municipalities and jurisdictions that don't use debt for this type of work. My argument continues to be that we have 600 bridges. The debt that we're talking about today is primarily for replacement of bridges. There is one road project mixed into this as well, a very expensive road project. But for the most part, this is, and by the way, the road project, I believe, is a project in District 2. But the majority of this, $4 million, is for bridges. And yes, I understand the argument they last 50 to 80 years. I get that. But there's 600 of them, and we replace half dozen to a dozen every single budget cycle. And to borrow $4 million and pay back $5.6 million every time when you have a pipeline completely filled with $4 million bonds, it's habitual. I'm going to support the bonding for this building, okay? I would have supported bonding for a piece of equipment. In fact, I think we have a need potentially for an industrial shredder. That's another discussion I hope we have soon. That it's going to be expensive enough that we probably ought to use bonds for something like that. The Pug Mill would be a good example where I think bond financing, which again, we would not be bonding at the Pug Mill specifically, but money's fungible within the budget. You could offset the money and use some bonding, essentially, that cash to make the Pug Mill possible. Having said that, each one of these bridges, although it lasts 80 years, the nature of this is there's so many of them. We do this every year. It's habitual. And we don't have to do this. We started to climb out of this hole. We went right back into it. It's philosophical. There's not like there's a right answer or a wrong answer. I'm not suggesting that bridges on my district are cash funded and bridges in your district are bonded. Although, if we did do that, I would have more money going to my district if that was possible, because my money won't be consumed in interest. The money you save bears interest. The money you spend in bonds, it costs interest. And so the delta between those two scenarios is quite a big number, actually. So again, I just think this is bad practice. We don't have to do this way. We started to climb out of this hole, and to me, it's a better way to do this. It's not like it's right or wrong. It's not. And it's not that I don't support bonds. But, you know, I was willing to forego this entire discussion today, but someone else brought it up. And had we had the Pug Mill in here, I would have decided not to even worry about this issue. Let's go ahead and do this because the Pug Mill is that important to me. Nevertheless, I will vote no. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye. I'm sorry, no. Excuse me. No.
Commissioner Meitzner?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a budget. And again, thank you very much for the staff. This has been going on since February. We truly do, all the work that everyone has done. Madam Clerk, next item.
Consent agenda.
Good morning again, Chairman and Commissioners. Tom Stolz, County Manager's Office. Recommend approval of consent items I through O this morning.
Thank you. Move to approve India through Oscar. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call a roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell? Commissioner Meitzner?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Legislative issues.
Mr. Papoon.
We really don't have any new legislative issues. Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned, we will be coming back to the commission for August 23rd with some ideas to try to include on the Kansas Association of Counties legislative statement.
Very good. Any commissioners have anything for legislative agenda today? Seeing nothing, Madam Clerk, next item.
Other.
Commissioners, anyone have anything for other today? Commissioner O'Donnell.
I was going to wait until after the fire meeting, and then we can talk about the water meeting at the end.
We can do that. Okay, that works. Anyone else? Commissioner Meitzner.
I would just like to, this budget process, a lot's been said, and I agree with Commissioner Cruz on all the thanks that she set out there. My observation on this is that we've got 40-some departments and a budget of whatever the $100 million, and I was really dismayed that we received, we had the one department that we had a lot of discussion about, the Department of Aging, to the tune of a fraction of the budget. And I would just like to encourage, first of all, I want to thank the other 42 departments that did not send us a letter after the deadline, the budget deadline. And I would like to encourage the advisory board or the director of the Department of Aging, however it happened that allowed that single issue to elevate to the extreme importance after the process and the dates were done. And if it was the director that encouraged it, then I think that's at fault. If it was a commissioner or anybody other outside party that encouraged the advisory board to do that, I think I am glad that we're going to do a comprehensive review of that department, because I'm troubled by it. I was troubled by all the discussion we've had. We're all supportive of everything about aging, but I want to thank the remaining 40 departments and the managers and the advisory boards of the other 40 departments that did not come to us after the deadline for the budget process. So I just want to encourage the future to keep going that way, and thank the departments for that abided by the rules and the process we had.
Thank you. I have one thing for other today. First of all, I want to thank Tanya Buckingham, our Register of Deeds, and her entire staff for the work that they've been doing on the veterans' DD-214s. And just to let you know where they've been, Friday I got an email from them. They'd already issued 423 cards and had filed 204 DD-214s. Her staff spent all day at the expo, and I was over there all day with them, the Veterans Awareness Expo at the Indian Center over the weekend. And they had a line the entire day. At the expo, they issued 199 cards and filed 67 new DD-214s. So that brings the total up as of Saturday evening, when I got the latest update, of 622 cards and 271 new DD-214s that have been put on file. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Tanya Buckingham and all of her staff at Register of Deeds for what they are doing for our veterans. I sincerely appreciate it.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Anything else before I adjourn? Okay. This time I'd like to adjourn the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners and call to order the governing body of Fire District Number 1 for August 7th, 2018. Madam Clerk, next item.
Roll call. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Present.
Commissioner Cruz.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Present.
Chairman Dennis.
Present. Next item, please.
Public agenda.
At this time, I'd like to open up the meeting for public agenda for anyone that has anything that they'd like to discuss on the fire agenda. Seeing no one, Madam Clerk, next item.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, fire meeting minutes of July 10th, 2019.
Thank you. Commissioners, everyone's had an opportunity to review the minutes from July the 10th, July 17th, and July 24th. Move to approve all three.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell? Commissioner Meitzner? Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
New business, item D, adoption of the 2020 Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 budget.
Mr. Manager.
Good morning again, sir, and commission. The fire budget, today is the day to adopt that, and though it's extremely important and critical in county business, it is operational and tactical in nature and not as complex as the general budget. The recommended fire budget for this year is $20,109,346. The budget will be supported with a property tax levy of $17,867,837, which will require a mill levy of approximately 18.131 mills based on the estimated assessed valuation and subject to technical adjustments. I stand ready for questions, as does the budget staff, on any issue regarding fire budget.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I understand that we do have an opportunity, if we wish to take it today, to very, very slightly reduce the mill levy rate. And I do understand that that very slight reduction would amount to about $2.70 for a $100,000 home per year, which won't buy you a Starbucks cup of coffee. But any time that we have an opportunity to reduce the mill levy, I think that that's an opportunity we probably ought to take. So if anyone would, first of all, does anyone have any questions on the budget before I ask for a motion? I see no questions whatsoever. We have two different options we can go with. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, I would agree with reducing the mill levy to avoid the truth in taxation requirement. I understand it's only $2.78 on a $100,000 house per year. I get that, but this still does include, even if we lower this to 17.889 mills, if someone can please answer this, it still provides an increase in funding this year to the fire district. Can you please clarify how much that would be to the fire district as an additional amount of money this year?
It's $1.6 million.
Okay, so $1.6 million additional this year, even if we lower it to 17.889. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make that motion. It's okay. I move that we reduce the property tax levy included in the 2020 Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 budget from the published amount of $17,867,837 to $17,629,561, which is approximately equal to 17.889 mills based on the estimated assessed value and subject to technical adjustments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell? Commissioner Meitzner? Chairman Dennis.
Aye. And do you have a second
Yes,
motion?
I do. Thank you, Chairman. I move that we adopt the resolution for 2020 Fire District Number 1 budget that includes an operating budget of $20,109,346. The total operating budget is partially funded with a property tax levy of $17,629,561, which is approximately equivalent to 17.889 mills, based on the estimated assessed valuation, subject to review and technical adjustments.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell? Commissioner Meitzner? Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Consent agenda.
Commissioners, Tom Stolz, County Manager's Office. Recommend you approve consent item E on today's agenda.
Thank you. Move to approve consent item Echo.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. Any discussion?
She can have it.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Aye. Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Commissioner Cruz?
So thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to mention, and I think Commissioner O'Donnell has something he'd like to mention too, right? So I am collecting backpacks. It's back to school. So if you guys have an extra $20 you can loan for a backpack, go to Michael's, Kohl's, anywhere, and pick one up. We're collecting them. We're going to hand them out tomorrow at Evergreen. So I'm not collecting cash. I just want to be clear with that. I'm collecting backpacks. So ages kindergarten through high school. So if you have it in your heart to bring one up to my office, anybody out there, I'd gladly accept. We are at about 30 backpacks. We're looking for about 50. So we've collected 30 so far. We have about 20 more to go. I just don't want any kids who show up to leave empty-handed. So if you have it in your heart to donate a backpack, I'd be happy to accept.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Donnell, you had something? All right, we'll go to Commissioner Howell first then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to be remiss and say thank you to all of those that worked so hard on this year's budget. I know it's been a very long process. It's the number one thing we do as elected officials is pass a budget, and it's a very serious matter. And we have great staff from the manager, our director of public works, our HR director, all of our directors across all the different departments that have had to come before us and make presentations, our other elected officials, but especially Lindsay Poroso. She has been tremendous, and her staff have just been absolutely amazing. So thank you for all you do, and I appreciate you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, my thanks go out to Lindsay and Lorianne and your staff. Just you always do a very good job, and I know how much that means to all of us on the commission and other departments as well. And we get a lot of compliments. You can ask the chairman, but we get a lot of compliments from the other departments, even when they don't get their needs funded. They're still very grateful that they have a voice and that we listen to them and we try to find solutions. And the chairman and I were just with the sheriff yesterday looking at ways to develop other solutions for items that might not have been funded in his budget. So we're very innovative around here. But thanks to Kate, she just sent this to me, so I have it on my phone. But just the reminder for tomorrow, we're having our county groundwater flooding meeting. It'll be 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at the Hayesville Middle School at 900 West Grand. Did I say 9 o'clock? Or did I say 8? 6 to 8?
6 to 8.
Okay, yeah, it is. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't see. I see a 9, but that's on something else. So anyway, 6 to 8 tomorrow night, Hayesville Middle School, 900 West Grand. Susan Erlenwein is phenomenal. She is going to moderate this. We have people from the Kansas Water Office coming. She has a hydrologist from WSU coming. We're going to have individuals from Public Works coming. Chris Labram from MABCD will be speaking. Somebody from WABA will be there. We're going to have representatives from the appraiser's office on hand to talk about property valuations. This is going to be a very holistic approach, looking at different solutions, but also explaining that we did have the wettest spring on record, and that there was flooding in not just Sedgwick County area, but throughout the Midwest. Just horrendous flooding. So we're hopefully going to get a lot of questions answered, and it's open to the public. Special thanks again to USD 261 for opening up the middle school for us. They've been very helpful along the way. So I'm looking forward to this meeting tomorrow. I want as many of us from the commission to go as possible, but for sure just let the public know that we do care, and we are trying to find solutions to this problem that's been plaguing us. So thank you for all your support on that, Mr. Chairman, and I think you'll be welcoming everybody tomorrow to the meeting. So,
very good.
All right.
Well, thank you. Well, as we get ready to wind down this budget season for 2020, the first people I want to thank truly, besides our staff, which did just an outstanding job working through this. We appreciate it very much. But I also want to thank each and every one of the commissioners who attended meeting after meeting after meeting, who listened to our staff, drove our staff nuts at times, I know. But we appreciate, I truly appreciate the commissioners that sat down today. And as you can see, we had some fairly robust discussions during our meeting today. But at the end of it, if you looked at how we voted, we pretty well voted exactly the same way right down the line, because we recognize the importance of providing goods and services to our community, to each and every one of our citizens. And that's what we're elected to do. And that's why I appreciate the service of every one of the commissioners. I know at times that we argue with each other, but we do it because we are passionate about what we're doing. And we want to make sure that our voice is heard. And so at the end of the day, we're going to go out of here and we're still friends. I can tell you that for a fact. We may not always agree with each other, but at least we can respect each other, and that's what I appreciate.